I think that he's not going to be fair. Had he said that, I think it's a different story. But he didn't say that.
That's not what he said.
He said because he's Mexican. I think that's the problem.
Yeah. Okay. So listen.
Matt, I agree with you on that point, but that also is just a lie. The Hispanic National Bar Association is not a leftist organization, and neither is La Raza. The Lawyers Association.
Here's what La Raza says.
Under the umbrella of HNBA.
La Raza issued a statement. And they said, La Raza, here's what they is. La Raza is a legal group. They said about themselves. San Diego La Raza Lawyers Association is made up of lawyers, judges, law students, and other professionals who work with lawyers in a professional capacity. Our membership of about 300 individuals is not monolithic, consisting of conservatives, liberals, Republicans, Democrats, and Latinos and non-Latinos alike.
But had Trump framed this as an activist judge, and that this is a case about liberal activism, that might have been true, it might have been false, but it wouldn't have been racist. But he said because the judge is Mexican, he can't be fair. That, I think, is, as Paul Ryan said, pretty textbook.
I think. So Don, the one thing that I appreciate about these conversations is normally you allow us to kind of shed the talking points. So if we're shedding the talking points for a minute, I want to acknowledge the fact that in this moment I am seeing white privilege. And I'm saying that because I, for the life of me, can't understand why people would say that he's an activist judge because he participates in organizations that ensure parity in the legal system for lawyers, for law students, for judges who look like him. That does not make him an activist judge. That's just not true. So I'm saying there are these organizations that are stood up for engineers, for lawyers, for MBAs, because we have not ordinarily had access.
Right.
How's this how's that white privilege though? How's that white privilege though? That's what I'd like to know.
What I'm hearing from I'm going to tell you, Matt, what I'm hearing from you and frankly from Jeffrey, what your response was like, oh, this argument would have worked if they would have brought it up initially instead of reverse engineering it. And I hear your point. What I'm saying is that argument is still false, but you all saying that it's an activist, I'm getting ready to tell you. So I know this is, we can be defensive about it or we can try to shed some of it so we can listen, but part of it is when you are in a position of privilege and power where you've never had issues of accessing certain trades, certain professions, you don't have to have these organizations that are based on providing women opportunity, gay folks opportunity, or people of color. And those are the associations that he's a part of. That does not make him an activist judge. What you're using right now is a white privilege argument. You don't understand because you don't have that need.
I think what she's saying is that you're looking at it. This is what I think she's saying, and you guys can respond. And let's not be defensive about it. We're having a conversation.
Yeah.
Why would I be defensive about
No, I'm saying all of us. I'm not
privilege.
But come on. So I think what she's saying is that looking through it as a lens of someone who has typically never been discriminated against, is that that's the lens that you're looking at America through, and America is not that way for everyone.
Don, I would respond that my friend Angela is looking at this through the lens of liberal privilege, and liberal privilege is exactly how she described white privilege, except you substitute the word liberal. That unlike conservatives, liberals don't get discriminated against because they are pretty dominant in the media. At least they have been for decades. They're pretty dominant in the political system. They're pretty dominant in the world of law. They're pretty dominant in academia. They're certainly dominant at the upper levels of my church, of my denomination, which is the same as President Obama's. So I would suggest.
But she said white privilege. So do you think that whites? Hang on. Let me get the question out before you answer it.
Yes.
Are you saying that aren't whites dominant in most fields in America?
I am saying, Don, that the concept of white privilege is something that is used by people who have liberal privilege. They created the whole idea of white privilege because they have liberal privilege.
That's
Conservatives
not true,
have nothing to do with this.
Okay.
This is not, so I would argue with you that this is not about a leftist or a right-leaning thing. This is not about a political party. This is
Angela.
But white privilege isn't bound by party, Jeffrey. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It isn't by ideology. Matt, I need you. I'm sure you want to defend yourself. Go ahead.
I don't think I have anything to defend.
Defend yourself, Matt.
I just want to say,
I think the funny thing is I was actually agreeing with Angela Rye, was the irony of this whole thing.
I wasn't attacking you, Matt. I was just saying I'm seeing this happening, so I just wanted to point it out while it was happening. It wasn't an attack.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
To be continued on the other side of the break. Don't go anywhere. Back now to the subject that we have been talking about, and that's race. Angela Rye is here, Jeffrey Lord is here, and Matt Lewis here as well, and we're continuing our conversation. So I think what's stunning, Jeffrey, is to see, you're seeing the people in the Republican Party coming out against this Trump racist comment more than you're seeing people in the Democratic Party coming out. And that's what it makes it just so much more interesting, because this is not like, you know, African Americans in the Democratic Party or African American activists or whatever. Not that they're not shocked by this or upset by it, but the resistance he's getting is really mostly from his own party. I want to play this for you. I played it in the last block, but this is Representative Reed Ribble, third-term GOP congressman, and he is a never-Trump congressman, one of the last remaining ones. Here's what he said to CNN today.
His comments over the weekend are authenticating what I believe is the man's core character. And, you know, something walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's likely to be a duck. And if you continue to say what I believe are racist statements, you're likely to be a racist.
So most people in the party have coalesced around Donald Trump saying he is our nominee, we support him, and now this. They're not saying this just to say it. They're saying it because there's something behind it. Do you understand that?
Don, my belief is that somebody like that congressman, and disappointingly to me, Speaker Ryan, have gotten into this whole business of identity politics.
And Jeff Flake and Lindsey Graham and
yes, absolutely. Every
Mitt
last
Romney
one of them.
and
Exactly. I've discussed this in terms
so
of...
they're all wrong.
Long before this incident with Donald Trump came up, I've discussed this incident in terms of Mitt Romney and Jeb Bush. I believe that identity politics is, as I've phrased it, the grandchild of slavery and the child of segregation. I think it's at its core racist. I don't care what somebody's color is. I think,
Yeah.
All right,
I think
Matt,
that's
but isn't
wrong.
this, isn't
What does that
Donald
mean?
Trump, isn't Donald Trump the one who brought up identity
Yes,
politics here?
absolutely.
He's the one who put it on the table.
Here's the problem with this whole thing. First of all, if you, like me, I believe that conservatism is actually the best philosophy to bring the most joy, the most prosperity to the most people, to bring about human flourishing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that liberalism stifles creativity, onerous regulations, bureaucracy, all of that keeps people down. So I believe in conservatism. I want to stop anything that tarnishes that. I also believe in principle, not partisanship, not just winning elections, but about things like character. You know, you go to church on Sunday, you sit in the pew, you hear, and you believe the stuff the preacher says, and then you go out and you hear Donald Trump make fun of a reporter with a disability. That doesn't comport with my values. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. And you know what? I think that a lot of these conservative and Republican politicians who are standing up to Trump are doing it, I think, nobly and courageously.
But they still support him.
Well, some of them do, and I think that's dissonance and incoherent.
So you as a conservative, do you think his comments were racist? That comment about the judge?
Yes.
Do you think Donald Trump is a racist?
I don't know. I'll put it to you this way. I've thought about this. You know, the sort of the consummate political racist that we think of was George Wallace. Mm. And you know that George Wallace started off as a progressive, a very progressive, tolerant guy, and he lost an election in Alabama, and he said, "I'll never be out-inwarded again." And so he became a political opportunist, and he was a race baiter. Now, I don't know what's worse. Is it worse to be a racist, or is it worse to exploit race and to drive people apart if you don't even believe it?
But is it worse to not know? Do you think that most people, and this includes Donald Trump, who, you know, the old saying, everybody's a little bit racist, right? One must examine oneself all the time. Yeah. You should be examining yourself. Do you think that Donald Trump knows whether or not he's racist?
No, I think this goes back to a segment that you recently had. I think that there may be sort of, I mean, the guy's first of all, he's 70 years old. Okay, there could be some sort of latent racism. Again, we all must examine ourselves and be introspective. I think, you know, look, he would hire somebody, probably date somebody who's a minority. But some of the things he does and says, I feel very comfortable saying are racist.
Yeah. Angela, I would venture a guess that most people who have those qualities or don't know whether, depending on, it doesn't matter what color you are. Most people who are racist or have, and we set up this racist thing. I think President Obama made a very good point when he did the interview on the radio show with Mark Maron. Remember that? And he actually used the N-word. He said, you know, racism is not just about, you know, not saying the N-word openly in public. There are subtle nuances, and people don't like to be called a racist, Angela, but everybody's a little bit racist, and we should probably try to figure that out and stop thinking, oh, being a racist is the worst thing you can call. Maybe you should say, well, maybe I am racist, and let me think about it. I'll let Angela, and then you can respond after that, Jeffrey. Go ahead, Angela.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. One is you raised some excellent points earlier in the show when you talked about who are you surrounding yourselves with, right? Like, if at some point we don't surround ourselves with other people who think differently than we do, who live in different parts of the country or in parts of the world than we do, who go to different schools, who learn different ways, who majored in different things, and who are different races, we're going to all have these challenges with prejudice, latent prejudice, whether we want to call it prejudice, bigotry, or racism for what it is. We have to all continue to ensure that we're breaking down these types of barriers. I think about often some of the things that my parents did raising me. I remember being 3 years old and saying to my dad, I was responding to him and I said, "No way, Jose." And that was it. And my dad told me sternly, "Don't ever say that again." And I asked him when I was like 16, I was like, why? Like, I wasn't calling, I didn't name a Latino person, I didn't hold up a sign. And he was like, I just didn't ever want you to get the idea that it was okay to do something that could be offensive to any
somebody
of our
else.
neighbors.
Okay, point taken.
That's
And right. Someone said that to me once when I said caught red-handed. And I went, oh, and then they explained to me what that meant about red people and Native Americans. And I said, you know what, I'll never really say that again. Maybe they don't find it offensive, maybe it is, but I just won't do it because I don't want to offend anyone. Jeffrey Lord, last word.
Don, what really concerns me, and I think this has been a terrific conversation, I grew up in the 1960s. My heroes were JFK and Bobby Kennedy. And I quote often President Kennedy in his Birmingham address saying, "Race has no place in American life or law." I am very concerned that political correctness, identity politics, is dragging us backwards to that era, to in essence resegregating America. I think it's wrong. I think it's terrible. I think that we need to get beyond this kind of thing, and I think this is a good way to do it and have the discussion. So, bravo.
I thank you very much, and I think you're right. But I also think that, now go away, I'll get the last word here, is that there's a difference between political correctness and being thoughtful and treating your neighbor as you would yourself, right? Do unto others. And if something offends someone else, I don't want to offend you, so I'm going to do unto you as I would do unto myself. So that is not political correctness.
I'm already
hang on, but that is called being a human being, a thoughtful person. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Don.